Shaun Dougherty is the president of the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. That's the largest, oldest and most active support group for survivors of abuse. He joins us now over Skype from Johnston in Pennsylvania. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here on Al-Jazeera. The news coming out of France is shocking, but perhaps almost not surprising in the sense that it almost, seems to follow the example that we've seen come out of other countries as well. From what you have seen, is there anything that's different about the situation that we've seen emerge in France?
Well, hello, Barbara. Thank you for having me on. The numbers are shocking, but to the survivors, they're not new information. This information is new to the parishioners and to the world. But keep in mind, the church has been in possession of this information for decades. They're just releasing it to the public. They have had this information at their fingertips for quite some time. They should have been acting on this and compensating and caring and making sure that their survivors are healing properly.
In this particular case in France, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was actually sort of bishops within France that ordered this kind of investigation to come out with concrete figures insofar as they can. Do you see that in any way as a step in the right direction for the Vatican, the Church, to take accountability for what's been happening?
I think it's a small step in the right direction, but why is the step being taken now? I think it is being taken now because of the outside pressure being forced upon them to release this information. Again, they have been in possession for this material for quite some time. I believe it is important for secular investigations to go forward. It is nearly impossible for large organizations to police themselves and hold themselves in account for their bad actions, especially when it is such a systemic problem as it seems to be within the Catholic Church.
Unfortunately, most of the cases now are beyond the statute of limitations for prosecution, but the report still suggests that steps should be taken so that the Church should overhaul its internal legal system, reform its governance, rethink training, and perhaps, hardest of all, but rethink the power of priests within the Church. What do you make of that? And do you get the sense that Pope Francis and the Vatican will actually take any of that seriously?
How many more reports have to come out, and how many more times does this question have to be asked and answered? The reports are coming out, but the actions aren't changing. I would suggest to Pope Francis and the church hierarchy that they treat their child sex abusers the same as they treat their clergy that steals. It has been my experience that if a clergy member or a bishop or a cardinal steals from the church, they are immediately prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Why not do that for a clergy member or a lay person or a nun or a teacher within the Catholic school system? Why are they not prosecuting these people immediately? That is the accountability that we are trying to get to.
In this particular case in France, some of the cases date back to the 1950s, but some are actually relatively recent, from about 20 years ago. Does the fact that perhaps we're not hearing as many recently point to the fact that the sort of public pressure that we are seeing and the awareness and the fact that these cases are making the headlines, perhaps changing the behavior of priests within, the predatory priests within the church?
Well, let's keep in mind that we have data that suggests that the average age that a child victim will come forward and disclose the abuse is the age of 52 years old. So many of these victims, the ones that are still in their 20s and 30s, are still trying to reckon with what has happened to them. So to say that abuse is happening less in the church because these reports are coming out, I think we'll have to reserve judgment on that answer for a little more time to go by, and based on the data that we know, that that the average age that a victim comes forward isn't until they're 52 years old.
Shaun Dougherty, president of the Survivors Network of those abused by priests, speaking to us from Johnston in Pennsylvania. Sir, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.